Hi everyone. Today's video, I want to put to bed a question that I get asked quite a little bit, and that is, would you recommend the Nikon Z6 in 2022? Now this video is not delving too deeply into the specs of this camera. It's just going to be touching base on some good specs that it's got and a couple of things I love about it and a couple of things that I don't like about it. But the Z6 is a fantastic system and it's something I've had now since 2019. It was released in November, I think it was November 23rd, 2018. I've had it since midway through 2019. It's been my main shooter since then, and I've thrown absolutely everything at this camera and it's handled it with absolute ease. This camera comes with a 24.5 megapixel full frame sensor, and it is backside illuminated, so really good in low light. It has an ISO range of 100 to 51,200, I think it is. And it is so good in low light. I'm a wedding photographer, so by the end of the evening the light is not so great, and being handheld, having the in-body stabilization, this has 5-axis in-body stabilization, so it really gives you that added sort of comfort when you are handheld and the lighting isn't great. So having that ISO range and having the full frame sensor and having the in-body stabilization built in really gives you that peace of mind. Now the camera comes with the Z mount, so the mirrorless systems now on Nikon are the Z systems. So I have two lenses which are Z lenses. I have the 35 1.8 and I have the 14 to 30. Amazing to go onto this camera, especially with video capability. The 35 is fantastic. It is capable of using the F to Z adapter, so you have the Z mount one end and then you have the F mount the other end. So if you do have quite a bit of glass, which is the old Nikon F mount glass, you can have it adapted to the Z6, but you do need to get this included either with the purchase of the camera or you need to purchase it separately. But if you do have plenty of glass, don't get rid of it, because you can use the F mount glass on the Z6 with the F to Z adapter and it works impeccably. I've got two lenses which are Sigma lenses with the F mount, and they work absolutely perfectly with the Nikon Z6 using the F to Z adapter, so it covers everything perfectly. Now this camera comes with a single card slot, and that card slot holds XQD cards. Now it's not a dual slot camera, so if you are looking at something or you just are so used to having dual card slots, then this is probably not the camera for you. But it is, like I said, not a standard SD card. It is an XQD card. These are very expensive, but they are super reliable. They're fast write speeds, fast read speeds, and they never get caught up in the buffer of this camera if you shoot in high speed. I have two of them. I have a 120 and a 64 gig, so I've always got plenty of memory, and I might purchase another 64 gig in the future just as a precaution, because I am a wedding photographer and I always like to make sure that I've got plenty of free space. But yeah, like I said, it's a single card slot camera, but having that reliability of an XQD card. They are a little bit expensive, so if you do purchase a Nikon Z6, I'd recommend going and getting a 64 gig. That is the cheapest one you can get, but they can still be a little bit pricey. This camera I've used for everything from portraits to landscape to slow shutter speed. I do use it in sport. I have shot sport, so if you do like a bit of sports coverage, then this shoots 12 frames a second and can shoot up to 1/8000th of a second. So everything that I've used this for, it has handled it perfectly, and I do love shooting sort of football matches with the Nikon Z6. So not the fastest, but very capable, so it has a tick in that department as well. And like I said, video, photography, whether you're covering landscapes, weddings, anything like that, portraits, this thing has got you covered. This camera is capable of shooting 10-bit N-Log, but you would have to send the camera body to Nikon for them to unlock that feature. And unfortunately, it doesn't do that internally. So if you were to go for that option and send it to Nikon and get them to unlock it, then you have to purchase an external monitor in the cat. So you'd need the camera, an external monitor and an HDMI cable in order to have that 10-bit N-Log, and obviously you would have to get it sent to Nikon for them to unlock that feature. But in terms of the built-in capabilities of this camera in the video specifications, it is fantastic. The autofocus, the low light, the in-body stabilization, everything it covers in video, it is absolutely brilliant in that department. If you do lean on video and you've got quite a lot of F-mount glass and you are looking to get a Z system like the Z6, then please make sure that you get an F to Z adapter. But if I'm honest, I have used a lens with an F mount lens adapted to the Z6, and it has really loud sort of jittery motors, and you can pick that up on the camera audio. So whenever I do use this for video, I always make sure that I use Z mount lenses to have them super silent autofocus motors on it, and it doesn't get picked up on the camera's audio. So if you are leaning towards getting a Z6 and you do sort of press over towards the video side of things, please make sure that you look at getting a Z native glass lens onto this, because it is massively important if you are leaning in that video sort of side of things. Just a little bit of a heads up, like I said, I've got 2 lenses which are f mount, and I've never ever used them in terms of using it for video, so keep an eye out for that. A couple of things that I absolutely love about the Nikon Z6, and it's the ergonomics of the camera. Now, the camera feels so good in the hands, the button layouts, the menu, everything about it is absolutely fantastic. The buttons are all in perfect places, so you can pretty much do everything one hand. Everything's nice and fast. The EVF, the electronic viewfinder in this camera, is absolutely first class, and I love using it. I love it so much that I've even purchased another Z system camera, but a little bit more about that before we finish the video at the end. And the ergonomics of this is absolutely fantastic. I did have the Nikon D610, and that thing looked massive and felt massive and heavy and cumbersome when I had it compared to this. This thing is so nice in the hand, so well built, and the weather sealing on this camera is first class. Nikon really did push the boat out when they made this camera. So the ergonomics, and obviously the screen is fantastic. You've got the tilt axis screen, perfect display on it, really nice to use, really clear, really good in sort of bright outdoor situations. So big tick in that respect. Another thing is the fact that this camera is so capable of doing everything that I need it to do. The camera in essence is fantastic. I've done video stuff, I've done photography stuff, and every single situation that I've put in, it's handled it with such ease, so I love it for that. So anything that you need it for, I can promise you that this camera has got you covered, and it is a very capable camera. The menus on this camera are so simple to use. Obviously, if you were to transition over from maybe a Canon or a Sony or something and come over to Nikon, but if you're already a Nikon shooter, you should know that the systems inside of it in the menus are nice and easy to use. And once you are sort of really familiar with it, it's second nature to just be punching through and using the menus nice and quickly. Another thing is the fact that this camera is fantastic in low light. Now, like I said, I'm a wedding photographer, so at the end of the day in a wedding, the light is really low, and we go into sort of really tungsten light, really low sort of. It is hard for the camera and you need to push it, but honestly, this thing has been pushed to its limits and has come out with the goods every single time. You can really push the ISO on this camera, and obviously with the in-body stabilization and a Z glass lens on this thing, you have pretty much got yourself covered, and it gives you fantastic sharp images. A little bit of post editing, so you could do a bit in editing to sort of really push them, and you could never tell that you were pushing this camera to a really high ISO. So big tick for me as a wedding photographer. If you're an astrophotographer, if you like doing astrophotography, things like that, or you are dependent on doing quite a bit in low light, maybe you're doing concerts or gigs, this thing has got you covered in every sort of respect in pushing it to high ISOs and having very good low noise images coming out of the camera. The fact that this thing is lightweight is perfect. It is so slimline, it is so nice to hold. It is really light. It doesn't mean just because it's a mirrorless and it's light that they've skimped on the build quality, because this thing feels like a top quality product. So well done to Nikon for that. I absolutely love my Nikon Z6. It's been with me for 3 years now. I've had it mid 2019, I think I got it, and this thing has been thrown around. It's even been dropped once or twice, and honestly, there's not a scuff on it. I've pushed it and it is just so good. I have had the sensor professionally cleaned once since I've had it. I do kind of always make sure that I've got an air blower on it, so I always clear the dust that sits on the sensor. But when I've done a sort of heavy sort of period of wedding photography, I do make sure that I send it to the professionals and get it completely done properly and professionally, and it's been absolutely amazing ever since. So the Z6, I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. The ergonomics, the build quality, the screen, the EVF, the low light, the capabilities of this camera are fantastic. and it's super nice to use. Now, with everything in life, not everything is perfect, so a couple of things that I dislike about it, and number one is it doesn't have a flip out screen. If only this thing had a tilt out screen, so that if you were doing a bit of vlog style stuff, you can see yourself. It's one of the main reasons that I purchased the Sony ZV-E10, so it has the monitor flipped out to the side so I can see what's in frame and what's not in frame. So keep an eye out for something like that. If you do want it for maybe vlogging, then just make sure that you know it doesn't have a flip out screen. Secondly, if you are to get this camera, then I'd make sure you purchase a couple of battery life, because this thing is hungry on battery power. It is a mirrorless, so obviously they use more power than your regular DSLR, so just make sure that if you do purchase it and you are doing things like wedding photography and you are out all day, or you do a lot of landscape where you're out in the hills and you're nowhere near a power source, make sure you have plenty of the batteries to hand so that you've always got juice to get you through your day of shooting. Obviously, because this was Nikon's first, and Nikon's not really known for video, this was their first sort of powerful video end mirrorless camera, and unfortunately it doesn't have 120 4K, and it also doesn't have 60 frames a second in 4K, which is a shame, but we get by with it. It does have 120, like I said, in full HD, so if you are looking to do some B-roll shots, or you do rely on quite a little bit of sort of slow motion action in video, then you do have it in 1920 by 1080, so that is a little bit. But when you are shooting in full HD 120 frames a second, I do find that the image can be a little bit soft, so the image resolution, so the video resolution of 120 in full HD can be just a little bit soft in places. So when I take it into post, I always make sure that I just add a little bit of sharpening to it, but I do sometimes find that it is a little bit soft in certain places, so keep an eye out for that. If you do sort of, like I said, rely heavily on the video side of things, that the 120 frames a second in full HD is a little bit soft, so always make sure you add that sharpening in post. So that's pretty much the only things that I can pick up that I dislike about the Nikon Z6. It is a highly capable camera and will capably cover everything that you need it for. Anything you can throw at it, it will basically laugh at you, because it does everything perfectly. I love this camera to pieces. It's going to be with me for many more years until I drive it into the ground, and when I do eventually retire this camera will go onto probably my shelf at the back, because this has been with me and has practically built up my business from scratch. It's an amazing camera and I absolutely love it to pieces. So the last thing is, obviously, would I recommend this camera in 2022? This was released on my birthday, actually, in 2018. So November the 23rd, 2018, this camera was released. I've had it since 2019 and it has been incredible since. Had a couple of firmware updates, had a sensor clean, and it has been an absolute beast. So the be all and end all is absolutely, I would highly recommend the Mark 1 Z6 to anybody in 2022. If you're looking to get into the mirrorless systems or going over to the full frame and you are looking at getting a camera, then I highly recommend the Z6. I love the camera so much that I've actually purchased another, like I mentioned earlier, I've purchased another Z system. It's not a Z6, but we find out probably in the next video which camera that's going to be. But because I just love shooting with mirrorless cameras, that I think that is the way forward now. I just think DSLRs now have had their time, that mirrorless is the way forward. So keep an eye out for that. We'll probably maybe do a little unboxing together, but I'll reveal which camera that is when it arrives in a few days time. The Z6, I absolutely love it, can't recommend it enough. So if you are looking to get into the full frame mirrorless systems, then I highly recommend the Nikon Z6 in the year 2022. So short video, nice and easy, nice and quick. I just wanted to cover a couple of bases on the Z6. And to anyone that does ask me, would I look to recommend getting the Z6 in 2022? Then the answer is a definitive yes. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one, where hopefully my new camera, my new Z system camera will be here. So keep an eye out for that. And until then, hope you have a good one. And remember, see the world, capture life. And yeah, that's all I've got. So peace. Laters.